Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. Buzz, 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 buzz. It's Blake's Buzz Live. More, hate less, read comics. It's Blake's Buzz Live.
Buzz, buzz, babies.
Buzz, buzz, babies. We are immortal. Forever. We're going nowhere. I'm here with a friend of the show. Rylend Grant is back. You know you're doing a good job when Kickstarter badasses come on your show twice.
2 times.
I'm the man.
2 times, motherfucker.
Rylend, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I'm excited. We got a new campaign that we're going to talk about tonight, and I'm just excited to talk about this new world that I've kind of recently found as well. These wuxia, right? I'm saying
wuxia, yeah, wuxia, yeah.
It's so cool. It's like it's so character driven, but so like wonderful with action and bright and vibrant and just really. Like both feel good. There's stories that lift you up. Like there's a lot of drama, a lot of action, and a lot and bad things happen too, of course. But I mean, like you leave these issues like feeling good, and I like that. I like to feel good. Like the world sucks sometimes, you know. It's nice to feel nice.
Yeah. For the uninitiated, wuxia is the Chinese magical martial warrior genre that I guess is most easily personified by Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That sort of thing, but you know, and it has for years been this prolific storytelling arena, and amazing stories have been told there, but it has inspired basically all of modern storytelling. I mean, you look at Star Wars, you look at The Matrix, these are wuxia stories ultimately. They're just stealing everything from wuxia. But yeah, so the book is Fa Sheng Origins, and it is from Immortal Studios, which is a comic book and media company that specializes in wuxia content, and founded by Peter Shiao, who is the son of Xiao Yi, who is perhaps one of the most prolific voices in wuxia, in like the history of wuxia, basically. Like
a massive library of works.
Yeah.
Like crazy amounts of content.
Yeah, he wrote 200 wuxia novels, basically. And, there's some of the best-selling books in China and worldwide. And I think they've been made into movies or TV shows over 30 times. And so, Peter has this library, and he's shepherding it now. And, he's found a way to sort of tell stories that are inspired by that library and that come directly from that library in a really kind of fun, heightened, and modern way. And, his, there are film and TV plans and plans beyond that and everything, but he has started in the comic book arena. It started with a book called The Adept, that, really took Kickstarter by storm, written by Charlie Stickney, who we'll speak to later, hopefully. And then there was a book called Chronicles of the Immortal Swordsman, and there's a Bearded Comic Bro. Good to see friends in here.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
Guys.
And so the new book is Fa Sheng Origins. And yeah, it is. Fa Sheng was a character in The Adept, and this is kind of, we go back and see his origin story, and we basically see him. Ooh, there's Peter Shiao.
Speaking of the man with the plan, Peter, thank you for joining us.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry. I'm calling in from the Middle East this morning, and
oh wow,
a little bit of a technology glitch.
That old excuse. I'm in the Middle East. It's a poor excuse.
right by the Dead Sea. I'm looking at it.
Nice. I'm
gonna use that for next time I fuck up. I'm just gonna say like, hey, I'm in the Middle West, guys. I don't know what's going on. Like
it's such a from a left field that you got to take it as truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like my dog ate it.
Yeah, you're on vacation or
no? I'm traveling through, and I'm here for a week-long event at the Dead Sea in Jordan.
Very cool.
And I blew up my power source here, Anyways, it's a long story, and I think Rylend was getting into something good. I knew it's going to be a high energy thing, but it's 5 a.m. here, and I'm trying to.
Oh man,
well,
you're committed to the cause. Like, thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
When there's pig on the breakfast platter, there's chicken, there are eggs, and then there's bacon. You know, the chicken was involved, but the pig is committed. I'm committed.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So are you still up from last night, or are you just waking up super early?
Yeah, it's been 3 hours. I was able to sleep for 3 hours.
Okay. Well, wow.
I got up for this because I knew this was.
Yeah.
This is important.
That is commitment, and Peter's as committed to these books. So.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about what you're doing, Peter. It's there's so much. You're good. Like, you have a really good eye for talent. These people that you bring on to bring these visions to life. And now I have a question. Are these, because I know you have your father's library at your disposal to do whatever you wish with, and whether these stories, are you pulling them from some of this, or are these your babies? Are these coming from like your ideas and you're bringing people in to co-write and draw and stuff like that?
Well, to the degree that my dad kind of opened my eyes to the genre, he kind of gave me a certain lens. But Fashing is an original. Fashing is an original story that I created. And this sits alongside many titles that he's created, and then making them come together, and then inviting other creative leaders such as Rylend to come and co-create with us is kind of how this mousetrap works.
Yeah, and it works really well. I mean, I think the greatest compliment you can give a leader is that they hire well. That they find good collaborators, and if Peter may have 5 or 6 or 10 superpowers, but I think his principal superpower is identifying and cultivating talent and putting the right people together. And he's just built a really great company. I mean, just backwards and forwards. The editors, Hank and Brian are just awesome and are very helpful and really shepherding this thing and making sure that it is this universe that has a give and take, and one thing that happens in this book is affecting what's happening in this book, and you really couldn't ask, as a writer, for better collaborators than those guys. But then the artists they're getting are top notch. The other writers, I mean, you don't get any better than Charlie Stickney, co-publisher of Scout Comics. Who else do you have? You have Tasha.
Yeah. Charlie and Tasha work together, and then he's got the Booch. He's got Bucciolato working on Immortal Swordsman. Like, you got big names, man.
We got the Booch, and we also have. Well, I guess we do talk about her because we did unveil her at WonderCon this year. Jen Troy, who's a writer on Supergirl and comes from television.
Is she going to be on the Assassin G?
She is on Assassin G, and she's pretty far advanced. And then, of course, I'm really excited about the next 6 writers who we're going to unveil at a certain point.
Wow.
And they're percolating in the background.
Wow. So you got a bunch of cards up your sleeve. It sounds like you're ready to.
You got to keep them guessing. But I think part of what's really fun about this is there's a big master plan, and we're co-creating with other creators and also our audience. I think you start with some sense of where you want to be, and then I'm a little bit surprised where we end up being.
Keeping your readers on your toes is good, and no element of any of these 3 books that I've read have I I was like, oh, this is about to happen, but it doesn't. They are impossible to predict, and they're quick and they're beautiful and they're flashy. But you know what really? I'm not gonna the character elements and the character interactions and the feelings. I wasn't really prepared for that when I read these comics about being swept away in the dramatics. I love the fight scenes. I love the choreography, and everything looks so wonderful. But I mean, just like in Adept with the sisters and this the trauma of one's past and how everybody's trying to work through that and then work through an amalgamation of other things and just kind of learn how to survive and learn how to live. And then even when she interacts with Brad, the shitty boyfriend, like there's so much like it's so good. I cannot wait for Fa Sheng, because like I just feel like every issue I've read since they've been coming out is getting better and better. And I'm excited because the new one, it seems to be a little different, because right now we've been in the present and we have these really cool, I love how we're like learning to fight in this dream realm, and or like in Immortal Swordsman, like within this computer game, like you're playing this, like there's this really interesting game you're playing with like magic and technology and culture, and like it's so awesome. And I'm really excited to like really dive into the history books with this new Kickstarter. And what made Fa Sheng happen? Like what, because it seems it's like on the line with your guys' other works, but it's also like we're going back in time. It's a historical novel. Things are different. Like how did this come to be?
Well, there's been I think multiple versions of the Fa Sheng character swimming around in my head for as long as I can remember. I mean, first of all, it takes place during this really, really interesting chapter, this tragic chapter of history called the Boxer Uprising. This was a turning point in East-West relations between China and 8 other foreign powers that be, and this was a really, really bad chapter, and that kind of began the century of humiliation that the Chinese considered. So there's a lot of, it's a very, very rich terrain to understand how this culture thinks about the world and its role in it. And it started with it kind of being pillaged and kind of taken down. There's an interesting part of it, because where the Boxer Uprising takes place is actually my family ancestral home. It's where my grandfather's from.
Oh, cool.
And he actually walked the earth during this time of the Boxer Uprising. I actually looked it up. It's like, wow, my grandfather was actually alive during this point. So I did a roots trip. This is like 4 or 5 years ago, and I actually started to collect a lot of these little human bits of history. So this is, on the one hand, there's the Boxer Uprising, and then of course Fa Sheng goes through various machinations, different chapters of his life. In this first book, I'll leave to Rylend when in talking about what happens in the first book, but the life of Fa Sheng actually covers multiple chapters. There's the Boxer Uprising. There's also this Peking Underground. Back when what's currently known as Beijing is Peking. I know you guys are like, wow, this is getting really historical. I can pull back a little bit.
No, you keep going, sir. This is like I'm interested. I'm the boss, so you go.
All right, boss. There's a really interesting chapter before legendary old school kung fu goes underground, and a lot of the spectacular kung fu just becomes things of the past, and people start to question, was that myth, was that lore, and this kind of plays out in real time, because a big central question of during this time is like, how badass are these kung fu guys? You know, can they fly? Can they be invulnerable to bullets? Because this is when guns are introduced at scale. The question is like, can these guys who are doing their thing, their qigong, their iron shirt qigong, and can they become invulnerable to bullets? And how deep is the metaphysics of that kind of superhuman transformation? So we also kind of ask that question, and we measure it up against the time when kung fu was just about to go underground. And there's a lot of these legendary figures, you know, the monk with the iron head. There's a lot of real characters that kind of makes its way through these pages. And last but not least, and super importantly, you know, the myth of kung fu started with the Shaolin Temple. And the Shaolin Temple would not be here today without Bodhidharma, the Indian monk who traveled to China. And this is like the myth of the original kung fu the fact that Fa Sheng becomes the disciple to Bodhidharma makes, in addition to the two other slivers I just talked about, has made Fa Sheng the most ambitious wuxia title in the past, I would say, 100 years. Because we've taken on 3 massive undertakings that would normally be kind of digested in so many different ways around the corner. But the fact that we put them all together, and then there's a current modern day element that's playing out, that's traveling across time and metaphysically important. So it's kind of timely that Charlie just chimed in on this. Between those 4 lanes, Fa Sheng is something that is wildly ambitious, provocative, interesting, and iconic.
Entertaining. Also entertaining.
Also very entertaining, yeah.
Very, very entertaining. Charlie, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Glad
so
to be here, guys.
that's right. So that's kind of like the pregnant milieu. I'm choosing my words kind of poorly this morning, but that's kind of what, for somebody who's interested in going into Fa Sheng, so wow, those are the 4 things going on, and it's entertaining. It's got amazing action. There's a lot going on. So like you're really stepping into something that's incredibly special.
Now, for all of your entries, Immortal, Adept, and now Fa Sheng, you have an on staff, like you have like real martial art masters like in-house going over storyboard beats and helping you guys choreograph fight scenes for all of these series and issues, right?
We do.
That's so metal. Like, first of all, like how did you hire for that? Like, what's the interview process like for finding a martial arts master to go over your storyboards? Like, did you have a tournament? Because that would be even cooler. Like, whoever wins.
Wait, let me write that down.
Yeah. We accepted applicants. Peter and I fought everybody that showed up.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And anybody that beat us was a finalist. And
we had a committee.
Whoever made me laugh the hardest, the way they took down Rylend, that was the person I was like, put them right near the top.
Here we go.
How is that? Scripting is already hard enough, and you know the collaborative effort of comic books is a beautiful thing, but I have heard stories of like you can get like too many hands in the kitchen sometimes, and so like what's it like working with multiple script writers, and then the artists on top of it, and then also someone who's like, no, you don't fight like that, listen to me and redraw this scene. Like, did anyone ever be like, was there ever any like headbutting, or was it like a pretty cohesive, chill experience?
First of all, I think because the earlier part of this program is that we've chosen wisely and very well, is that we are completely comfortable with the creators we work with. We're comfortable with the choices. In fact, in choosing Rylend and choosing Charlie, we're asking for their brand of storytelling and their creativity. So I don't think there's ever been a time where we've had to be heavy-handed. In fact, we're sometimes I'm just sitting back because we've chosen so well that I get to geek out over the things that they do and just pat ourselves in the back. So the conversation we have is like, oh my God, can you see we love what he's doing, or so there are a few principal areas that we will have a conversation around, but I think those generally are really positive conversations.
Yeah, there was a good foundation built before I ever wrote anything. One Peter had this world and this arc, very clearly mapped out as he saw it. But before Peter and I ever talked anything about story or this project, it was this 2-year dance of us getting to know each other philosophically and spiritually and all that stuff. And so we were aligned on a lot of things, and we discussed a lot of things that we then both brought into the story. And I thought that was really interesting and really helpful. In fact, I've told this story in an interview or two, but it Peter and I met, and then, you know, nothing really happened work-wise for a couple of years. And it was clear, I think, from moment one that we were going to work together on something. It was just about finding the exact right thing. And I don't know, after a couple of years, Peter called me up and he's like, "Hey, I've got the thing." And it was sort of a bad time for me. I mean, I was busy with film and TV stuff, and so I was sort of hoping that it wasn't the right thing, that I'd be able to say like, this is great, but you know, I'm busy now. I don't think I can do it. Blah 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 blah. But then I read, you know, this document that Peter sent over, and it was the right thing. And so I had to figure out. I had to start moving things around and figure out how to do this thing because it was awesome.
Yeah, because you're working on The Jump right now, right? Or you're scripting it, or is it your collaborators, your writing group friends that I also have interviewed and talked to and have become kind of cool with online have told me that you've passed around scripts for The Jump.
Yeah, there's other comic stuff going on. I have I mean, short and sweet, I have a film in post that was just shot. I have 2 films shooting in the fall. I have a TV series that was sold and that may go before the end of the year. And then there's comic stuff. So it was hard to fit this in, but I saw it and I needed to fit it in. And so I think when you're working with like an army, you're right. An army like this, it is a blessing and a curse. I think that I do more in a script than maybe I normally would, because I know that the vision needs to be clear, right? This is how I see things, but that's built with the help of the army too. I mean, Peter has so much input, but then, you know, again, like I get to a fight scene, and I may have an idea, but I know that we have Gene Cheng on staff, so sometimes I can just email Gene and be like, "Hey, what would happen in this?" And Gene Cheng is I don't know how many generations. He is a Shaolin.
34th generation.
34th generation Shaolin monk, but he's also the editor. He's also the editor of Kung Fu magazine and has like a list of bona fides as long as, you know, my arm. But so I can email Gene and have a conversation about something. But sometimes it's just like I write my script and I'm like, you know, and then for 3 panels, there's some action. Gene ? And all caps. and you know, and then that'll go to Gene and he'll come back with something amazing. What were we gonna say, Charlie?
I was gonna say, like, it's the thing to specifically point about your question is comics at its core should be a collaborative medium, right? It's an industry that's based on you know, the writer working hand in hand with the artist to create something that's greater, you know, than the sum of all its pieces. And so, you know, this is just adding another asset to the team versus making it more complicated. And you know, when you go back to the old, you know, Marvel method where you just sort of like put the story down, it depends on the artist you're working with. There are a lot of artists who want to be choreographing the fight scenes, but like the early conversations I had with Gene is it's like anything else. A good fight scene is a story beat. So it's about what's the story that's being told there. And as a writer, you can still have a lot of input. The character needs to express this. They get from point A to point B. At the end of it, you know, this is where everything is. I'm going to let the person who is way better at this one particular skill set than me, you know, elevate it. Yeah. And make the entire thing look good. Because again, it's a collaborative process. And I think, you know, like that's what I've loved about working on The Adept and working with Immortal Studios is there is that, you know what, I'm an expert in this. I'm an expert in this. And together we can make something fabulous. And I think the entire Immortal Storyverse, you know, when Peter talks about the pillars and like the different things, at the end of the day, you know, what do pillars do but support? And so all of these pieces are coming together to support each other. So, you know, while, you know, as a writer, you can be like, I am building The Adept with, you know, Fa Shang Origins makes The Adept a stronger, richer story with a larger tapestry. And every piece, every pillar that we bring in is making the Storyverse a more elaborate, complex tapestry. And, you know, it comes back to Peter to make sure all those pieces are fitting together. But I think as a writer, it's really fun to be part of something that it's that big, that organic, and that's continuing to grow.
Well, and it's just, this is how good stories are told. Charlie and I are very smart guys, and we do our research, but we haven't seen and done everything. And so, if you, I mean, the best film work that I've ever done, that's how it is. It's like, okay, well, you're writing a movie about a Delta team. The producer sits you in a room with a Delta team for a couple of days, and you get and they tell you every story they have. And you get to ask them, every question that is percolating, and then you get their email addresses afterwards, and they become your pen pal for a year. And
if you share those email addresses, they kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
yeah. I mean, I remember, I remember being in at the Scott Free offices, and it was a project that dealt with like black ops type stuff, and we're supposed to meet with a former CIA operative, and the guy comes in and he has a black hood on. We never saw his face. He walked in, and he's wearing like a blazer and a nice shirt, and just dressing like anyone would for a meeting, but he had a black hood on, and he could see us and we couldn't see him, and he talked to us for 90 minutes. We never saw his face, and then he got up and he left, and a car dropped him off, a car picked him up. It was and this is how good stories are told. Like I don't know this stuff. I have never been a Delta Force operator. I am not a 37th generation Shaolin monk, and so it's great to have one on staff. Yeah.
You guys have way cooler lives than I do. I just want to throw that out.
Our special guest actually has beamed in from a cave from the Himalayas, actually, in a similar fashion that Rylend talked about. Because as you know, Fa Sheng actually does have supernatural powers. He travels across time, and even though we're meeting him in a more human moment, so to get to the truth of that, we had a few special in-studio guests. We had to go through a few kind of transcendent master interviews to really get it right, and I think Charlie and Rylend both enjoyed that interview process.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Rylend, was it intense? Like the amount of, I feel like there was a lot of research done for Fa Sheng.
Yeah,
and both before and after you, right?
Yeah.
Like and then on your own, I'm sure you did a lot, because you're a very smart, intelligent kind of book nerd. Like you're not afraid to like dive in deep and do research. Like I learned that about you when we talked previously. And so, but was it difficult or intimidating to like take on that level of research and to get to know this culture and to put yourself in a position to write that story? Like how was it hard to get to that level? And then a two-parter after Rylend answers that, like Peter, what made you trust Rylend? Like what made you be like, actually you can answer that for both, for Rylend and Charlie. Like what clicked in you, and what impressed you with both of these guys where you're like, yeah, these are the ones, and because they're both great storytellers and they're both insanely talented and they both have a track record that speaks flawlessly for itself. But I mean, you know what, I feel like with your stories and what you're trying to do, like, you could have asked a lot of people, and we're these two guys, like these, and they're both, especially in the Kickstarter world, they're very proficient, Kickstarter warriors. But like, what clicked in you, and you were like, these are my guys, I'm bringing these into this world?
Yeah, well, I think the way I see this, go ahead, Ryan.
No. We want to do the research question first, or do we want to do what do you want, Blake?
Research, and then why you guys are cool.
Yeah. I mean, was it difficult? Absolutely. But did that phase me at all? No, it was the reason why I was so excited. There is a massive responsibility in terms of writing this from a historical perspective, from a cultural perspective, to do it right, and to give it the care it deserves. But I mean, I've been writing professionally. I haven't done anything but write for 15 or 16 years now, and this is This is my job, you know. So I fall in love with the world first and foremost. And this was just so, it was just so meaty. There was so much to it. And so that's really where I come alive. It's like, okay, well, you know, this isn't just it's not just a different culture or a different place. It's a different time, you know, and it wasn't just one culture, because like the beauty of China during the Boxer Uprising was, it was cultures abound. It was China was getting, you know, invaded by these other cultures, these colonizers who were trying to, you know, sort of force their beliefs, their religious edicts, all of that stuff on the people there, and that was awesome, you know. And I can always tell, okay, well, I'm reading about this stuff, and I need more, and I need more, and I love this, and I love that, and I have this piece and this piece. I'm collecting puzzle pieces. And I can tell by how excited I'm getting that what I bring to a reader is really going to excite them, right? So that was the first thing. I mean, you know, this is first and foremost a historical drama, and there is this big cultural element. And so, and thankfully, again, I have people like Peter, I have people like Gene Ching, who, you know, who will make sure we are doing justice to this culturally. And there have been a number of things where I mean, there have been a couple of times, I can think of two very specific ones, where we took a whack at something, and then as a family, as a company, we had to be like, did we get this right? Let's hit the pause button. Let's take a long look at this. Let's think about how, you know, our Chinese readers will look at this and process this. Did we do it justice? Did we treat it fairly? And then we've had to, you know, make a minor adjustment to make sure we got it right, and we were sure about that. So that's the first thing. The other element from a research standpoint is kind of the spiritual, philosophical nature of this, because this is about a man seeking enlightenment. This is about a Shaolin monk, a Buddhist monk, and one of the lesser explored lines in my bio is that I happen to be an ordained Soto Zen Buddhist monk, and that is sort of direct importance to this. I'm trying to figure out how to answer this without it being like an hour-long answer, but so
this is like show, you just go.
Yeah. So as Peter talked about, a guy named Bodhidharma brought Buddhism from India to China, maybe about 1,200 years ago, and he brought it to the Shaolin Temple, and from that came Chan Buddhism, which Chan is the Chinese word for Zen. But then also Bodhidharma taught the monks were out of shape at the Shaolin Temple, and Bodhidharma taught them a series of exercises that eventually became Shaolin Kung Fu, right? Well, about 800 years ago, a guy named Eihei Dogen traveled across the East China Sea, you know, basically in on a raft, you know. I mean, it was basically suicidal. It was crazy. And because he was unsatisfied with the philosophical teachings of the day in Japan, and he studied Chan in China and brought that back to Japan and founded the Soto School of Zen, you know, which is the school that I am ordained in. You know, about 35 years ago, a guy named Brad Warner went to Japan to make monster movies, fell in love with Zen, was ordained there. And I don't know, about 10 years ago, Warner ordained me here in Los Angeles after studying with him for a long time. So long-winded way of saying that with this, I am going sort of back in time and studying a sort of link in my spiritual chain. When you get ordained a Buddhist monk, you get a lineage chart. And you can see how the tradition, how the teachings were passed from person to person to person. And so I can follow my lineage chart all the way back to the Shaolin Temple, all the way back to Bodhidharma specifically. And so that is really interesting. And it's an interesting way to look at this. And so in a very real way, Fa Shang is me. I had a similar story. I mean, I grew up in kind of a hellish environment. You know, he was he was growing up with all this war and strife and cultural change around him. I grew up in a housing project in Detroit, sort of fought my way out just like he did, and eventually ended up at a temple, twisted and turned and wondering which way was up and looking for answers and guidance. And eventually I found something like that in Zen, in this practice. And so that first, these first couple of issues of Fa Sheng, it's that story. It's that young man who in the beginning thinks he knows everything, but then life kicks him in the teeth 30 or 40 times and he realizes he knows nothing, which is maybe the most important thing to know, knowing what you don't know, right? And then gets to a place where he starts asking the right questions and starts finding answers. And so in terms of the research on that, I mean, in terms of what it means to be a monk and what it means to ask questions and even what the answers are that come from Zen, that research had already been done. I sort of, and Peter will now answer why he thought I was the right person for this job, but I think that is a big part of the answer.
There's a lot of you in the script, then, that there's a lot of good nonfiction, like real attachment. Like, so you're very much like close to the story, because I've heard him say this on numerous interviews, and he's been saying it on Twitter a lot, that this is one of the best things he's written. And I love Rylend's stuff, and he's a good writer, and he has like really fun and engaging and wild stories. And so it's always interesting for me when I hear like writers that I very much respect and very much like enjoy and pay for your comics and read them and like get lost in them. Like when you guys come out and you're like, no cap, this is some of the best shit I've ever done. Like, my nerd scales are going off, right? Like the buzz is buzzing, and I'm getting, my hair stands up, my beard sticks out, it's like a frizzy humid Missouri day. And so it excites me, and it like I feed off that passion. I'm inspired by it, and that's what again like makes me so excited. Charlie, the same with you. Like Adept, I just got, we recently got the second issue of the Adept, that Gene Ha cover. Like, goodness gracious, he's good. He's so good. And I got the Gene cover for Rylend's comic too. But like both of you are just like, you're so good at storytelling. And it's like you can drop yourselves anywhere. You can drop yourself in like a mecha kaiju story. You can drop yourself in the midst of a small town with elves and dwarves and a century of backstory that people hide behind closed doors. We can build these narratives where we learn to defend ourselves against the evils of the world through our dreams, and then learn to be heroes in real life when we wake up. Like, I don't read a lot of comics like these guys. Like, these are very, very, very special stories. And I want to know, like, Peter has some kind of deep insight to this world and obviously the culture, because he grew up in it. But, he could have made a movie. He could have written a novel, right? He could have done a lot of different things with all this material, but he decided to start here in graphic storytelling, and he knows just who to pick from the field of talent, which is plenty. And like, how, like, you have so much to choose from, Peter. Like, how did you do this? Because every choice from what I have seen has been flawless. And like, I don't know. I didn't know that human beings could be flawless until like I read your comics.
Oh my goodness.
Well, let me just quickly interject before Peter explains where he somehow found us. That if anyone's new to the stream, Fa Sheng Origins is available right now on Kickstarter. So you can get this wonderful thing that Blake has been talking about right now. So now that I've done that plug, Peter, I'll put it back to you.
I think you can get the Adept and Immortal Swordsman as add-ons, right? Like, that's all you can get everything that you want in all bundle.
Yeah, you absolutely can. Look, I subscribe to kind of the notions that are being portrayed, and there is such a thing as karma. So I think somehow, and I'm a student of karma, somehow life puts us in front of these people. So it's not so, it may feel random, but I just feel like we're supposed to do this together. We're supposed to do it together. And of course I do my homework. Like in working with Charlie, the first thing I did is I read back to back everything he did with White Ash. You know, we actually had an extended conversation, and I kind of knew what we were getting into. So in a way, Charlie chose us, and I did the same thing with Rylend. You know, when I read The Jump, this is way a lot longer than we actually worked together, and I read everything he did cover to cover, and frankly, like, I think it was 10 pages in, I knew this guy was a really, really good writer. That, you know, I'm going to be crass, but he wrote this shit out of every page that I read. and I was like, wow, this guy is hardcore. The choices he was making, how badass he was, and what I knew of his backstory. And I kind of, the things that I look for is I look for people with kind of a creative itch that they haven't gotten to scratch, and to look for this thing that was going to help them do that. So, you know, those were the two things, and in a very real way, because I didn't grow up in the comic business. In a way, I feel like they were giving us a shot in working with them. So it just made it really, really easy. And
the stuff that your dad wrote was all novels, right, Peter?
Yes. He actually wrote in an interesting way. He wrote through dailies. So I still have these memories of my dad. You know, we all have different memories of our respective fathers, and he worked from home before you know, there was such a thing. And he wrote on this carbon paper. There was like thick, like 6 or 7 pages of carbon paper, because whatever he wrote became a column in a newspaper around the world the following day. So he would have to write 6 or, you know, depending on how many times it was being syndicated. So he didn't have an editorial process. Whatever he wrote appeared on a daily newspaper somewhere the following day. And then over a few years, they became novels because they would be put together. So that's how my dad wrote.
That's and there's so many. I've seen the pictures on your website, and like the pictures you post. There's like this elongated map, and it like goes around a corner. There's like a shelf, and then it goes around a corner of just all this story, all this culture, all this like beautiful melodrama that like came from your family, that came from your dad, that like you have now inherited the rights to. So like even if, and I don't think this can happen, but like even if one day you woke up and you're like, I don't have an idea, you have this like unlimited storage of like
but that's
crazy
precisely
stories.
The point. That's precisely the point, that not having to do that, or having a foundation to build on top of, because he didn't have a chance to, because he didn't have an editor. It was all stream of consciousness. And as you know, things actually get better. Things get better when you collaborate. So the fact that I can now retroactively go to his works and use that as a foundation, and then to bring in other folks to kind of contemporize it, and to add in new elements of intrigue and plot that he was not able to do by virtue of how he worked. And of course, being in Kickstarter, and I'm going to just lay in a little bit of what's around the corner for people who consider themselves Immortal fans, that we're going to be inviting a lot of people into the process to help us kind of craft these stories, to develop stories, and to kind of flag multiple characters. And as you know, because it seems like you've done your homework, we've set up the Shaoyi library at UCLA. So we actually have the Shaoyi Wuxia library. We're taking that partnership pretty seriously. So we're going to have multiple readers, multiple ways for our fans to access that kind of material, and in an internal way, help us flag stories that they would like, and give us some insight on the vision they have for these different characters, and how they would kind of interact with the foundation that these two other gentlemen, that Rylend and Charlie and our other writers have kind of created. So it's actually an incredibly fun and engaging experience for someone who's watching, let's just say, from the veil of Silicon Valley or interactivity, all these different buzzwords, Web3, that we're actually doing an experiment that's never taken place before.
Wow. I'm just excited. Like, everything you guys are doing at Immortal is really intriguing to me. And I was actually talking to a friend earlier because I was telling him I have a couple friends that like are still like weird about Kickstarter, right? They're just like, and I'm just like, get over your own fucking bullshit, man. Like, there's awesome stuff out there. Just back. Like, listen to me. Like, I'm your friend. This is all I do. This is like, I'm out here like screaming into the void, right? But and I understand a little bit of it, but I mean, you guys have nailed fulfillment. You guys have nailed the campaigns. You ship well, you ship securely. Your comics like feel good, right? Nice thick paper. They don't come like with like, this week's issue free with moisture wrinkles. Like, we don't get that. It's all they're just very nicely bound cardstock covers.
Blake, we have to give credit where credit is due. Charlie was extraordinary in lending his goodwill, his years of experience. Like when we partnered with him, we just not even found a creative partner in him. That, as you know, as you may or may not know, Charlie's actually a member of our company advisory board. So,
oh no, I didn't know that. That's cool.
He actually gives us advice on every aspect of the comic business, and he gave us a great list. This is before our publishing team arrived on the scene, so it was just a few of us in our office, and Charlie was just incredibly generous, and in so many ways he taught Immortal Studios. He kind of inculcated his sense of generosity and his sense of givingness and community and support. And so he kind of taught us all of those things because those things were a part of the culture of the company. So we have to give that kind of experience a lot of credit. And as I think back, we actually met each other on the same day.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, we did. This is LA Comic-Con. How many years ago, guys?
2019.
2019.
People were alive back then? That's crazy.
This is just right. Yeah.
Charlie was on my Kickstarter panel, and Peter was in the audience, and Peter talked to Charlie afterwards, and Charlie threw my name in the hat at some point after that, and so it was.
The rest is history. I had always wanted to do a Kickstarter campaign, and I came from another world in the industry where I didn't get a chance to engage publicly like this. So I didn't consider Kickstarter a backup option. It was exactly what we wanted to do. The idea that you could actually work collaboratively and empower ourselves and get the stories to people who want them in a kind of a democratic way, and giving fans a chance to vote, frankly, with their hearts and their wallets, to see if this is something they want to be part of. Like, to me, it's incredibly exciting, and it's incredibly forward-looking, because I think it's really giving fandoms a vote. They get to vote with their wallets, and I think this is also this is a live experience. I want to talk to the people who are watching. Like, if you're interested in all these things that we're talking about, Immortal Studios, this really, really storied history, this genre that has been around for thousands of years and iterated by these great master storytellers in their own right, now working collaboratively together in one banner where we're doing something that has never been done before. Like, please support it just comes down to us collaborating and working together. So for the people who are listening, if this is provocative and interesting, please go to our page, vote with your heart and vote with your wallet, and get a copy of Fasching in your hands, because that's what it comes down to, the fact that we can do this.
Well, and then going back to, thank you for saying all those kind things, Peter. One of the things that, when you were talking about, Peter finding me, or, why did I choose to want to work with Immortal? At the end of the day, when you're a comic book creator, You are your own brand, right? And I've always tried to preach on Kickstarter, and I try to get other creators to do it. Whatever you put out there is a representation of you. So you want to put the very best thing, not just into the writing, but into the product, into the shipping. And, so that comes through. And I'm glad that you're seeing that, Blake. And it's, I talked with Immortal, not even just about Kickstarters, but just about the vision for the company, the kind of people we'd be working with, because quality is important to my personal brand. So I didn't want to be part of something that I didn't, that was cutting corners. And that's definitely the exact opposite of what everything, anyone who's been listening to this can tell the amount of thought that's going into everything that's coming out here, how considered every beat is. I co-write The Adept with Tasha who is an amazing writer. And so for me, it was the chance to collaborate with Immortal, to collaborate with someone like Tasha, to be able to contribute a piece to a universe. But I'd only want to do that if I thought it was going to be something that was quality, and that every stage of it. And again, going back to that, that's what you have is this. You listen to Rylend talk about how much thought he's put into the first issue and the series and the research that's been done. And Peter has been building this universe and the philosophy. Like, this is not just, hey, here's some comics on Kickstarter. This is years of building something together. And I don't want to say it's a movement, because I think that's getting a little too heady, but it is a comic company that is trying to give you something more. So, so that when you get the books, you can feel it in the quality, but how much time, how much thought has gone into every single page, the different hands, the different eyes, the choreography of the books, to make sure that we're, delivering, as Peter said to me early on, I want this to be an authentic experience. That there needs to be, like, it's awakening the hero inside, but we want that to be an authentic thing. It shouldn't come across as fake, because if it's fake, it's going to be cheesy, and this needs to be real. And every part of the experience needs to be real, and it needs to be considered. And so, I think that's one of the things that separates everything that Immortal is doing from a lot of other places, maybe from any other place.
Yeah, look, everything. I totally agree with the real notion, because everything feels so real. I love the fighting. I love the art. I love the variant covers. I love the stories. But like I mentioned earlier, it's the way the characters interact with each other that, like, there's just heart. There's heart, and there's real humanness in the midst of all this, right? And a lot of people say, like, they have those really awesome Twitter hot takes where they're like, well, I read my comics to escape all the bullshit of the world, and then I don't want any real talk in my comics. And I want to be reminded of the power of humanity, of the good things that we can accomplish in this world. When you watch the news and everything is shit and it's dirty, and like everybody's got a gun and they're using them in the worst ways, right? And it's just like, the world gets scary sometimes, and I want my comics to remind me that, like, there's still good parts of humanity left, and these comics are doing that. There's so much the character interaction and the emotions that are portrayed. And I'm excited after hearing Rylend talk about Fa Sheng, about, like, the notion of, like, finding yourself and the beneficial aspects of, like, realizing you're wrong. When when you're like, oh, I fucked up, but you use that as a positive, and you're like, I was wrong about this, and I'm gonna do life better after I've realized this. I see that in these narratives, and it's like, I don't want to kiss your guys' ass too much, but it's like, I read these and it reminds me that it's, like, okay to be a better person, right? And that notion of being a hero, of how defeating villainy is on a lot of different levels. You can beat the bad guy in a lot of different ways, whether you're a martial artist expert, whether you're a magician and have, like, this cultural magic behind you, or just whether or not you're smart enough to, like, read your surroundings and try and better the lives of those around you. And Adept, Immortal Swordsman, do that in numerous scenes, and they do it so wonderfully. Like it's so easy to turn these pages, and I have no doubt that Fa Sheng is going to do the same thing. Like I just know, I know Ryland's storytelling well enough now. I think we're like, I know a little bit of what might happen, and I know the strength of the everybody working at Immortal, and that everybody coming together. And I think the world needs more of these comics. That's my opinion. I'm just a weirdo podcast host, but that's just my opinion.
Hey,
who are we to argue?
Years. Yeah. Look, I think you're just nailing it. And we actually have a mission at Immortal. In addition to delivering great storytelling in this timeless tradition of the martial arts fantasy genre, I think after really examining the history and the reason why the genre continues to exist is really because we all need heroes. We need heroes that we can relate to, that challenge us to be better humans, that kind of make sense of our lives. So we chose the mission of our company to be awakening the hero in everybody. It's something that we actually think about. We have weekly meetings around, and that's the measurement of the stories. Like, do these stories really empower you? Do they take you to a better version of yourself? And I know that our writers would know this because we talk about this. We have extensive meetings about how this character is actually going to do that. And Rylend just put it out there. Look, we're benefiting from years of his life experience in reading Fa Sheng.
Well, and I also think that not only have you chosen, good writers, you've chosen good people. Like everyone that I know who works at Immortal is the kind of person that you want to spend time with, because these are people who give back to their friends, to their community, and so you feel good about having these people part of your circle. And so like I love Tasha, who I've gotten to work with. I've known Rylend for a while now, and he is one of the most giving creators out there, always trying to help other people. He has his own podcast that he brings people on and promotes people all the time. So these are great people who are not just looking out for themselves. They're trying to tell an amazing story, but are always looking out to help build up other people and really be that hero, that people want, and each in their own individual way. It's just, you don't especially like living in Los Angeles, you don't too often get to spend that much time with a group of people who you like. like there's one or two, but like all of a sudden there's a huge group of people that you'd actually be like, you could take my kids for half an hour. I like you to let you do that.
Please take my kids for
right. Like you trust them and you like them enough not to stick them with your kids. But like these are the people, like almost everyone there, is the kind of person you're like, you know what? They're not going to sell them, and if they did, they would at least give me a good price. So like it's good people with good souls. So like that on top of everything else. I mean, I know that's not always the sexiest thing to say, go buy this comic because they're good people. But for me, it's like, why do I want to work with this company? That was another selling point, because I could definitely tell that like everyone's heart is in the right place in terms of creating something that gives back.
I think to build on that, I mean, good people, sure, absolutely, but also these are all people with something to say, pouring heart and soul into these books. I mean, I think that it takes so much time and so much energy and so much capital to make one of these things. They cost money to buy. They take time to read. That is a huge commitment from everyone involved on all sides of it. And so if you're going to do that, if you're going to spend that capital, like, the book better be about something. It better be saying something. It better be making the world a better place in some small way, and part of that is entertainment. I mean, we've all been through hell these past couple of years. Having 15, 20 minutes to just, kick back and have your mind go somewhere else. Take it off the nasty for a little while. That's amazing. But there's more here. We do that backwards and forwards, but we're saying something, philosophically here and environmentally and historically and culturally, and I think it's pretty.
But with ass-kicking action.
There you go. Yeah. And somebody gets kicked in the teeth every other page. I just
love how disciplined and on message our team is. Whenever we wax on a little bit too much in the philosophical and the substance realm, someone will jump in and say, and there's great ass kicking and it's entertaining. It's kind of like reading the comics. Like you're just going somewhere like, wow, this is really cool. I'm having these thoughts of enlightenment. Oh, I just got kicked in the teeth. Bring it back to reality.
It's the yin and yang, right? You need that balance.
There you go.
Well, all right. So speaking of balance, real quick. So I have an Adept 1 and an Immortal Studios and an Immortal Swordsman 1. These are the stepping stones to these wonderful stories that we've been talking about. And the first person in the chat who says my new dog's name gets these sent to him free of charge.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, as you're waiting for
no pressure. All I do is post pictures of this stupid motherfucker. I know you guys know his name.
He posted them on Twitter.
And by the way, I think this is a really good moment to drop a new bomb for the people who are listening, that we're actually greenlighting a special collaboration between these two fellow creators. Rylend, who is the writer of Fa Sheng, and Charlie, the co-writer of The Adept. They're actually linked, and we just recently asked both of them to come up with a special edition after we hit the next milestone to create a little bit of backstory on kind of bringing these two different stories that are paralleling together to see how they fit. And this is only through Kickstarter, and this is what you get to do. So for the people listening at home, you guys get to help us greenlight this. Please jump in right now. Let your friends know about this. Let's bring this past this next milestone so that we could actually greenlight this special chapter that would not be here without Kickstarter.
Very cool. Well, it looks like Ignacio got me for international shipping, but that's cool. Like Blake's Buzz is here for international shipping. We'll get it done. But no, it's
hit me up, Blake. I'll help you with that.
Yeah, I was going to say Charlie's the international shipping master. He'll save you about $25 if it breaks the right way. So
yeah, he's the 37th generation disciple of the shipping, international shipping.
Like if you go back to the very early pirates that were going in the Atlantic, those pirates who have started shipping then are direct descendants of pirate ship today. Which is where I trace my lineage back. But Blake, do hit me up after the show. I'll help you with that.
Cool. No, yeah, I mean, as long as I'm just happy to put these comics into someone's hands, because the way I felt reading these, it very much reminded me of like reading X-Men comics as a kid. When you could like buy them at the gas station in the grocery store, right? Except I didn't. I bought these on Kickstarter, but it was that kind of excitement. It was like I forgot about like my student loan payments, and I forgot about my shitty job, and I forgot about like all these things that like weigh heavily on me. And then it reminded me of stuff that mattered, about like what you really need to care about, and how like, we all have bullshit we got to deal with, right? But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light comes through, focus and caring for your fellow people and standing up for the right things. And it was just a good reminder of like of life and where we all need to be right now, because it's so easy. I feel like it's real easy to hate shit, like I work pretty hard on being like a positive voice, and if I don't like something, I don't talk about it, or I try hard to, I try not to poke the bears and the trolls on the internet, right? Like sometimes you want to fight that battle, but sometimes it's like it's not going to make a difference. But I try to be really positive in that, and reminding people that love comics that there are great stories out there that sometimes you can't find them in the comic book shop. Sometimes you gotta like, hunt for them in different areas, and or sometimes they're just not coming out from Marvel and DC and Image, right? There's other stuff out there that puts out great comics, and you guys are that. Like you guys are doing that with Immortal, and Rylend and Charlie are doing that with their own endeavors as well. And so, like, everybody listening tonight or that watches this later, like I really hope you keep track of what Peter and Immortal's doing. I really hope you keep track of what Rylend's doing. I really hope you keep track of what Charlie's doing. Like, these guys are all telling really strong stories that are out there, right? There's magic, and there's immortality, and there's other beings, but hidden in that mystical element is a reminder of like the pureness of humanity, and like what we're capable of when we're not all being selfish little assholes running around murdering people for fucking Starbucks coffee or whatever the fuck we do in America. We do weird shit. But it's just these guys are so talented and also have a good message. And it's rare. I think it's rare. Like it's hard to tell a story where you remind people of these elements organically, and you have to be really talented, and you have to be on another level to do that. And Peter's got this backlog of stories like ready to go up his sleeve, doing this all day, and he has found people to help him like carry this message of humanity. And like I just it means a lot to me. Like I don't want to sound cheesy, but it just, the things that you guys are doing and the communities that you guys are building, and the communities that you're reinforcing with these narratives. Like I see you, I respect you, and I'm so glad you're here. And I mean that like 110% all day. I'll die on that hill. And I want the three of you gentlemen to know that, because I really believe that. And you guys are, it shocks me that you all came on a live show on a random Wednesday night to like talk to me. Like I respect the three of you so much. You have no idea. Like you guys do really awesome stuff in the comic book field, and it's echoing, and I see those echoes and I hear those echoes. And it's just to get to like talk to all you guys again. I've talked to Charlie and Rylend before. Peter, this is my first time getting to talk to you. Just like, it's like hits in the feels, man. Like this is so cool to me. Like thank you. And I just, you guys are doing it. Like you guys are doing it. You're making you're writing the good stories. You're telling the good tales. These stories are immortal. Like they're not just from Immortal Studios. They're immortal. They're going to live for a really long time. They're going to echo throughout generations. And like, that's just fucking cool. Like,
hey, Blake,
who gets to do that?
Can I get video excerpts of that? Because I want to run that on our website.
Yeah, I'll give you audio excerpts. That's the new, everybody wants to pull quote me. I don't get it, but please put me on all your comics.
Let me throw a little sunshine your way too, because I think, what you're talking about, like the humanity in the stories, the like the realness in it. I mean, I've watched a bunch of your show, and there's no doubt that anyone who watches your show knows the enthusiasm, the humanity that you bring, because you love comics, you love creators, and it never feels put on or over the top, because you can tell you're sincere about all of this. And I think that's why people really enjoy your show, because here you're a hero, you're a giver, you're out here doing this show. And as we know, it's not like there's a lot of money in streaming, videos on YouTube, right? And like all the hours that go into cutting it and putting it together and making it great. I mean, so like I think you are really a champion of independent comics, and so I appreciate that. I applaud that, and I do think that what you're doing is making an impact, and that people notice that, and that's why they want to come on your show.
I'm not gonna cry on live TV, Charlie. I'm not gonna do it. You almost,
What is this?
you
The Jerry
almost, you
Maguire
Doing
almost,
moment?
God's work.
This is the Jerry Maguire moment.
That's right.
No, I mean, I appreciate that. I just love storytelling, and for some reason I love comics, and for some reason all this kind of like happened in the last year, and I'm happy it did. I tell people a lot, you know, I was in grad school, and I'll pay that money forever, and you know, like they brought in like a writer a year, you know, and we'd get like a guest lecture and a guest workshop, and if you were lucky, they picked your story to workshop, and this, like, you know, this big time writer with a name would like talk about your story. But all I do now is talk to really talented writers and artists and storytellers, and like I never thought this would happen. Like it's so cool to get to like nerd out with you guys, and I get excited. Like you know, I know I'm not there. There's a lot of more popular shows than mine, and we're gaining steam, and things are happening. But I mean, like it just excites me that like all I want to do is show people that there's like really good and unique comics out there, like especially for people that are getting bored with what they're buying every week. Like there's other things that you can find if you like, you know, pick up the rocks and look for the roly-polies and the snails and the weird stuff. You know, there's stuff to find at the river bends, you know, and I want to show people where to find it, which is funny because I never fucking go outside.
How many more days, Peter? Can we find this on Kickstarter?
A week?
I think we got 5 days left.
5 days. Here we go.
We were talking about Blake's pull quotes. And so I grabbed my my Suicide Jockeys season 1 trade, and Blake's pull quote is featured on the back. Suicide Jockeys is the Marlboro Red smoking result of a drunken, passionate night of lovemaking between Pacific Rim and Power Rangers. It sucked the socks right off my gross feet. It made me spontaneously combust in a fiery cloud of awesome. It's fresh, it's epic, it's tragic. If you're not reading this, then you're a big dummy. It's maybe the best pull quote I've ever received,
and he told people that, and he tweeted that out, and now people are like, oh, like Blake, I want a pull quote. And I'm like, fuck, it's never gonna be Suicide Giant. Like I was on like a weird level, and everything just connected. Yeah. But no, like I have my name is on a few comic books. Like it's fucking crazy, and I think I was allowed to share this, but when By the Horns when the new By the Horns #1 drops, like they put my pull quote on the cover, like, and it has like my logo and everything. Like it's like, how I've been doing this for almost a year, and like I started podcasting solo in July, and like you know, it's real easy to be negative. I think a lot of people, you can get like the followers, you can get the clickbait, you know, people latch on to your nastiness, and I don't like that. It's always aggravated me. Like you know, like because it's easy to get mad and tell everyone to fuck off. I used to be a bouncer. I used to get paid to do that, and like, but I don't like that. I want something else. You know, I want people to feel good, you know, especially now. Like, it's still a weird world, you know, and it's still, people are still getting sick, and people are still so hateful, and people are still, you know, we saw it the last week twice, you know, people still taking guns to places, and you know, just carelessly.
There's way too much hate out there.
You're right. And I just
hate generates more hate.
Yeah, and if all I can do is like remind people that like there's things to be happy about, even if it's nerdy shit, right? Even if it's Pokemon cards or Magic the Gathering. I don't play cards. I don't know why I went there, but like people have talked about that on my show. But like if it's going to a comic book shop on Wednesday, or if it's buying that expensive variant, or if it's buying that new Marvel Omnibus, or if it's, you know, if it's backing that new Kickstarter and getting, you know,
supporting the new Kickstarter campaign, of Immortal Studios,
and buying a sketch that I wish I could afford, because he can draw, and his sketch prices are not I'm trying. Hold on, I'm pulling it up. Oh, look at these. Look at these.
This is from Dexter, right?
This is from Dexter. Yeah, you can just get this.
We got to talk about Dexter. He's on fire. Dexter's on fire. The guy is just so amazing for us to partner with him, and what he brings, that positivity, that energy, and that real sense of camaraderie and friendship. He's got it in spades, and we're so happy with the work that he's doing, but also how he's showing up as part of the, as a key member of the Immortal family. So definitely a huge shout out to Dexter Wee.
Yeah, and then what is it?
I was just going to say, speaking of Dexter, you should keep your eyes out because he has a book coming to comic book shops in June as well, called Mega Centurions. Yeah, through a company called Scout. But yeah, so he's got a series coming out starting in June called Mega Centurions. So just thought I'd throw that out there. Like, Dexter is doing a lot of stuff, and he's going to be in the comic book shops. He's going to be doing Fa Shang. Like, he is a name to watch. And if you can get a sketch from Dexter now, jump on it.
You're right. Yeah, but before it goes up like $150 next year.
Exactly. That's my point. So.
No, yeah, he's super talented, and I'm excited to just like gush at every panel that he does for this new that's my only complaint about Immortal Studios as a whole and Kickstarter is that, like, I just need more, like, faster. I have nothing bad to say about you all whatsoever, but just like, it's and you come out with, like, the previous issues that have been, bonus sized issues. There's a little bit extra weight to some of those issues, and like even with the extra pages, it's just like, oh, you get in there and then all of a sudden it's over, and then you read it again, maybe because you're interviewing the creators of it, but even on the second read it goes by too fast, and you're just like, whew. And then we have like the advertisements for Adept 3, and we have the advertisements for Assassin G, which are also really exciting. And I know that we probably can't talk about, stuff like that yet, but I just am excited that you have more, that there will be more, that there's more up your sleeve, and you're just ready. You're ready to, like, let us drink from the well of your fucking masterfulness, Peter. Like that.
There's another pull quote for you.
Yeah, write that one down.
I'm just thinking of how can I get that onto every handle I have.
Yeah. Put it on a t-shirt, wear it to cons.
Or you just have a well in the back, and you said, drink from my well of masterfulness.
There you go. But I'll have a little bladder. I'll have a little bladder of awesomeness.
Nice.
Or the beer things with the straws.
There you go.
You can just
we gotta go on weekends where we bong from my
well. But I do want to say, like, the one thing that you're putting your finger on, Blake, which I think is different than a lot of Kickstarters, is it's a creator and they've got a book coming, and then they're going to work on the next issue. This whole thing is all in production right now. So, like, these issues, they're being written. These series, they're being drawn. So this is, there is a flow of things that are coming out that people can count on. So that when Peter talks about, like, the 4 pillars, about, like, these different things, these are not pie in the sky dreams. These are books that are currently being made that we want to share with Kickstarter first. So I think that's, that's also important for people to understand. It's not like, oh, can they pull this off? No, we're currently doing this. So this is not this is something that's in action right now.
What's the term, in agriculture or food, there's farm to table. I think we're talking about a comic version of that, right? From the studio to your hands in quick order.
Craftsman, small lot, small batch comics.
Oh no, what's the word though for, like, artisan
yes,
comics?
Artisan, yeah.
I was about to say, what's the word for bread? I used to work in a sweatshop bakery. It was terrible. I got all the free bread, and it was amazing, but it was like 110 degrees every day. I remember one day a woman passed out because it was too hot, and they were, like, making us drink water and made us, like, take these breaks. And I was like, or you just, like, put fans in here, I guess. But yeah, this is all these ovens everywhere making this amazing bread in Kansas City, and yeah, I was mad at my boss at the bar I worked at, and I basically told him to fuck off, and I was like, oh, whoops, I need a job, right? Like, you can't just tell someone to fuck off and not have a job. So I took a pay cut and went and worked at this bakery and made artisan bread. But I wasn't making the bread. I was like taking the bread that they made and like bagging it and packaging it and putting the label on it and like sending it out to restaurants in Kansas City. It was the worst job I've ever had in my life. Yeah, it was bad, but it was artisan. It was artisan bread, and it was good. What, Peter?
No, I was getting confused. I thought you were a bouncer at a bakery. I was.
Yeah, the bread was so good that people would often try and fight their way in and take it.
Which did happen because
I want to go to that bakery that needs a bouncer.
They would give the bread away to homeless people, and sometimes like sketchy homeless people would like walk into the bakery because there wasn't a lock on the door. And some nights we were there till like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're in downtown Kansas City, like not the best neighborhood of Kansas City, and like these like super sketchy people would just like throw open the door at like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, like, oh, I need some bread. We're like, oh shit, not again. Like, but yeah, no, but we didn't technically need a bouncer. It was just a weird area. But no, I was a bouncer at a bar, got mad at my boss.
Missouri. This is Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri, yeah. Hey, we murder a lot of people here. We're like second to Detroit. It's like barbecue and murder. It's like why you come to Planet Comic-Con. Barbecue, murder, Planet Comic-Con is why everybody comes to Kansas City. You guys should come one year. It'll be fun. Did I sell you on it?
Well, you should come out to the next Immortal live event during this year's Comic-Con.
Where are you at?
Well, we're planning on for those who actually went to WonderCon. We had a wonderful event of the Immortal Storyverse. This year we're double downing. We're actually going to have 2 panels. So if you like what we're doing here, we're going to have a version of that, and with Fa Sheng already in people's hands, so we can actually dive into the choices and we can talk a lot more. And we will also by then have Assassin G out, and probably some big announcement coming from the adept world as well. So I think, and we hope to have Booch there as well. So consider yourself pre-invited already.
You mean San Diego this year, right?
San Diego comes down,
yeah.
That's right.
In July.
Well, hey, San Diego, if you want to give me a press pass and fly me out for this exclusive coverage to make all the creators happy, I'll do it. I'll take off work. I'll make the sacrifice.
You'll take one for the team.
Yeah, like I'll make it happen. I'll bring some bread. Bring
there you
some
go.
Kansas City bread. And some...
If Immortal needs a bouncer, for the panels.
Yeah, cons do have bouncer. I found that out like after I left that. See, now when I was a bouncer, so this was like 4.5, 5 years ago. So like I'm squishy now. I'm like desk job squishy. I'm not in my fighting form. Like I was never like looks good with his shirt off form, but I was like, like I used to pick up college kids and like throw them over my shoulder and carry them out. Like when you pick up a man, you don't necessarily have to fight him, right? Like when they get mad at you and you're like, listen, little motherfucker, and you take the beer out of their hand and you pick them up, you throw them over your shoulder and you carry them outside and you set them down. Like, do you really, like, are we done now? Do you want to take this somewhere else? And they're like, no, I'll leave.
We got to recruit you to join the Boxer Uprising because you sound like a boxer.
There you go.
Hey, Peter, I'll do whatever you tell me to, man. You're a fucking genius.
Well,
whatever you want me to do.
Join the Boxer Uprising. The Immortal Uprising. There you go.
The Immortal Uprising sounds like a good like event.
We were talking about the movement. We were looking for like a term for the movement. And we're like, well, it sounded a little political, but yet there you go. The Immortal Uprising.
Because it's an uprising that never stops,
everything's
right?
political. Yeah. If you can back it with something cool and fresh, like it's fine. Give it a cool T-shirt and a keychain and a koozie. You're fine. You're good. Let them riot.
Sign me up.
Yeah, right. Give me a koozie. I'm there. I'm done. Like, no, that's all. Like
throwing some bread.
Yeah, you get a koozie, you get a loaf of bread, and you get an ash can for Assassin G, for signing up, and then Peter, you got a Substack yet? Are you guys doing that route yet?
To be discussed. That was the thing we're going to announce. Thanks a lot.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
Sorry, sorry, I asked the good question.
There goes that announcement.
It's a Blake's Bugs exclusive, sort of, maybe. Tune in later at SDCC. Yeah, I get to vote for the Eisners. I just got the Eisner ballot. Like,
Yeah, well,
yeah, like me, this guy. Like, who the fuck am I? It's crazy. People were asking me, like, how did you do that? I was like, I went to their website and filled out a form. I didn't like impress anybody. But no, that's cool. So at SDCC, you guys are coming strong. You guys are gonna have like a big presence.
We're coming strong, man. We're coming strong. Look, these 4 pillars, we will have laid these 4 foundational pillars that are going to be super important, not only in the days, but the years to come. So we're going to celebrate this moment. We're on issue number 3, and by SDCC, we will have all 4 foundations out, and we'll be able to talk a lot more substantively about where the Storyverse is going and the challenges and kind of the key characters of forming our squad.
So again, to probably ruin something, it sounds like you're going to be announcing something probably,
yeah,
as Fa Sheng's fulfilling, like you're just like moving into another campaign after that, maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, they all come together and form kind of the shared universe. So we haven't been able to really talk openly about the shared universe until the 4 pillars are out, but by then we will be able to talk about it.
I'm excited. I think your readers are definitely going to get that vibe of like, oh, like there's a bigger story being told here and things are going to come together. Cause I'm not like smart, right? Like I'm not like building rockets and shit, but I was like getting that vibe kind of, and it just felt, I felt like things were going to come together in a big way. Like it felt like, it felt like watching the Avengers in like, what was that, like 2010, 2012, forever ago, when things were more simpler and the air wasn't diseased, and then it's just like, I just was getting that vibe from, I was like, there's pieces, right? You're leaving breadcrumbs for your readers and your Kickstarter backers, and there's going to be like this bigger narrative behind it.
Absolutely. And we're so honored to be able to have this community from Kickstarter to be part of it. And it keeps growing through exercises like this. And with every new book, there are new devotees, there are new people signing on, there are new collaborators. Truly exciting.
I bet I can't imagine. And to have this like coming out of like your family, like your blood, your literal blood, sweat, and tears and like genes are mixed up in all of this. Like this is your personhood, like being made real in all these different ways. And like I feel like that just would never get old to see. Like with every new Kickstarter success, with every new fan, with every, someone posted on Twitter, like, oh my God, I just read this comic and it blew my mind, or people finding out like wuxia, like what that means, and all these different elements to explore it with, like on Netflix with the series and stuff, and books and novels and graphic novels and comics. And it's got to be like super invigorating, right? Just like it's giving you immortality technically.
Yeah, in a way, I guess if you put it like that, but how I experience it every day is just this real joy and honor and this feeling of being incredibly fortunate that we all actually get to do this. And so it's cool. It's cool.
I mean, like other than like you got to talk to weirdos like me sometimes, but like other than that, like it's pretty cool, and you're out there doing it.
I love it precisely because I get to have these kind of conversations. I'm not sitting around having polite conversations wearing little neat suits. That you can get in there and get down and dirty and really talk about the things that people find inspiring in their lives and what they're looking for from their stories. Like, honestly, Blake, just getting the reaction that we got from you today was incredibly fulfilling and meaningful. The fact that I think you picked up on the vibes that we've been sending, and to know that you felt that humanity was coming through, that better angels was coming through, new possibilities and authenticity. And there's a moment of recognition when you felt inspired or connected or exhorted to greater heights, being a hero yourself, bouncing people from bakeries that needed to be bounced. That's why we exist.
No brioche for you, motherfucker. Yeah. Get the fuck out of here.
I think Blake, the bakery bouncer, is the fifth pillar of the Immortal Storyverse.
You beat me to that. That's the fifth pillar. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, shit. I'll join your crew, guys.
I hate to cut it short, guys, but I have a 5-year-old to put to bed, so I'm gonna tag out here. But Blake, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure. I can't wait to be back on. I like to keep the record, for my favorite shows in terms of being on the most. So, is 2 appearances the most right now? Are Charlie and I tied? Or
you, Charlie, and David Hazan, the writer of Nottingham.
Yeah.
So
all right, well, yeah,
you two are like you three are the pillars of Blake. You're my 3 pillars.
All right, well, I might have to kick my way on in the next week or two.
Like a cardigan with like the number 2 on it. They did that with Saturday Night Live. So.
Yeah, everybody needs to call me Deuce now. So, all right, guys, Deuce out. See you guys.
Right.
Thank you, Rylend.
I will say like that image of like of you with a couple of loaves as some kind of martial art weapon does sound like one of those Jackie Chan films. Like you could almost see like where he was the drunken baker going through and then just has to defeat, right?
Totally, we got to feed that to Jackie. By the way, we told he's done everything, but I don't think we've seen that bakery fight.
Yeah,
that's right.
He's never fought anybody with a
with a long
oh yeah, imagine like he could be
fully baked.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey man, some of those sourdough, like they make like the fancy cuts in them when they bake them. Like they cut you like paper cuts when you're like bagging them, and they get like the real sharp edges. So like bread could totally be a weapon, but also no, like you guys could write a way better story than that. Don't do that.
Yes, stale bread, yeah.
Especially stale bread. I mean, that is a weapon.
Yeah, and baguettes like crispy
Blake the Bouncer variant. That is we may have to look into that. The Blake the Bouncer variant.
I'm here. Ignacio will draw it probably. If you guys need an artist who's in the chat, he's drawing variants for everybody these days. If he can find time, me wheeling the bread. For some random reason, like why is this the Assassin G variant that you wanted? We don't know, but it's just Blake's buzz with bread, Assassin G. He's not in the comic, he's not in the universe, but buy it. It's $20 on Kickstarter. Why not?
Blake Morgan, bakery bouncer.
Yeah, I'm trying to break into the medium, guys. So like maybe this is how I do it. Maybe this is how I do.
I think you just did. I think it's already happened.
Yeah, like seriously, like I think people support that on Kickstarter. The tales, like the after hours tales of the baker bouncer, and like the adventures he has to go on to get back. Like the sourdough starter that gets stolen from the bakery. Like it's like a generations old one. He gets drunk, and then it's up to him to try to track that sourdough starter down. Otherwise, the assassin be.
Charlie, I don't know. I think you're really onto something here. I know when you get the sparkle in your eye, and we had it with the adept. I think we're catching lightning in a bottle again.
But I throw that your way. I mean, whatever rises or doesn't, comes with fermentation.
Whatever rises.
It's the yeast I could do for you.
Whatever rises. Well, all right. So now, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna take a sabbatical from Blake's Buzz and begin writing scripts for whatever rises. The story of the bakery bouncer from Kansas City, who changes the world, and
one bounced. You know who are the names of the people who you're bouncing?
One carbohydrate at a time. Just
one carb at a time.
See, this is why I do these things. I joke about it, but no one ever believes me. Like I entertain all you creative people and super talented people and have you on my show so that I can steal your ideas. And then like one day, like I'm just going to like drop the Kickstarter of Kickstarters, and I'm going to shut down Kickstarter because it makes like $20 million, right? Like I'm going to shut down the system. And this is like after 50, 60 interviews, like I figured out what to do, and then it happens.
Yeah, I am there for it. I will definitely cut off a piece of that. Yeah, I think
I didn't know you were so strong with the puns, Charlie. Like where the pun game is coming out tonight.
Charlie's on fire right now.
I'm a father, so it's part of, you know, like the dad jokes to embarrass your children is really like an important part of that dynamic. That I try to cultivate with my children. You know, like my daughter is, you know, she just turned 10, but she's so on point with her eye rolls when I start saying things. Like I'm like, where'd you learn how to do that? I mean, is that just natural that you can?
Are you like, are you a cool dad? Or Peter, do you have kids too?
I have one daughter, and she's 13 going on 21. So I know the eye roll thing quite well. I just got
so nothing Peter does is going to impress her yet. Like later that when I was that age, like I was a prick, but now that I'm older, I'm like, you know, realize like my dad and I are real close, and I like realized that like I shouldn't have been like as mean to him when I was younger. And then that though like way heavily, he's having all this heart shit going on right now too. So like things are a little weird and scary, and I just keep thinking like my asshole years, and now I should have been nicer to my dad. But I mean, like you guys have like cool jobs, like you have cool dad jobs. Like are your kids like, you know, like, oh yeah, my dad's make comic books. Like does that like, is that cool points in the playground?
It was total cool points. I still remember the look on my daughter's face when I showed her the Adept for the first time. She begrudgingly agreed and volunteered that it was cool. And I can tell by the expression on her face, she hated saying that, but she had no choice but to say.
Right. Like I would say it's more that I know cool people. Like she's willing to say, okay, maybe you know some cool people because you work in comics. You know, like this Seda Wolf who you introduced me to is the greatest thing in the world. Who's like this comic book creator who just turned 18. You know, and so like, and she's doing this stuff herself. My daughter also loves the Adept. So like these things. Yeah. Yes, but it's like, I know you're kind of associated with that, Dad, but obviously everyone who's doing all the good stuff is not you. But thank you for bringing me to those people.
It's like, Dad, where's your name on it? How did you finagle this? Who did you have to bribe? Like, that was the look on my daughter. Well, she could actually say that. It's like, oh, Dad, yes, you know cool people, or occasionally. Yeah. Cool things will spawn around you, you know, completely uncaused by you.
Like, look, put it this way. My kids would think Peter is cool before they would think I am cool, right? Like that's like you want to introduce them to your cool friends.
Put on a Stetson. That may kind of vibe things out a little bit.
With my kids, maybe. My wife, probably not. So it's that balance.
You know, I did pop in there. I think randomly one time, when my daughter's friends asked her if Annika, who's my daughter's name, that's her name, if Annika's dad was a villain from Marvel Universe. That's my rep on the street, that I'm a villain from the Marvel Universe. To her,
and the answer, her friends. You know, like that's pretty much like you know, to quote Ghostbusters, when someone asks if you're a god, you say yes. Like, yes, I was in the Marvel Universe. Yeah. Of course I was. Yes.
Yes.
You know,
all day.
You know,
yes.
Yes. Yes. I fought. I almost beat him.
I was like Iron Man got mad at for a half second, and in the post credits scene. That was me. Yeah, well, I mean, you got to take. I don't know a lot about kids. My friends that have kids, they're all like real tiny and happy and easily impressionable still, right? And so like they haven't, the attitudes are beginning to develop, but like not like as intensely as it is when you're like in high school and or going into high school. But I mean, it just feels like you gotta take what you can get, kind of, like you're like, yes, like, sure, like, yeah, I'm around, I'm not that cool, but like my friends are cool, but I'm cool by association, sure, like, believe that. But then later
my friends make these incredible comic books that you can also get on Kickstarter right now for another 6 days, so
and you can use my credit card to buy it.
Charlie, that was really good how you just kind of snuck in there.
He's good at he's really good at doing interviews and stuff.
He is the master control guy back there. Because okay, we're veering a little bit too far from topic. Let's remind everybody there's commerce here.
Yes.
Well, I think like that's the great thing when there's multiple people in an interview, right? It gives you a moment to sort of step back and sort of say, okay, we're here to entertain people. We're here to talk about this amazing book that we're doing. We're here if anyone has any questions, obviously, to answer questions. But when it's just you get on a track. And so like I used to have way back in the day, I had another writing partner, and we would do a lot of these pitch meetings. And that was the great thing in a pitch meeting, because whenever one of us was on a riff, the other would be like, what did we miss in terms of the story? And you could sort of think about that while the other person was doing their magic. And then you'd be like, oh, let's bring it back and focus in on the salient points we also have to make. And I think, Blake, your show is just filled with magic. And, and so,
really
but I do.
You must be really bored. I love that, but that's like crazy to like. You're a fucking like rock star, dude. You can't be telling me my show's.
I was able to walk the floor with Charlie slightly at WonderCon this year, and he was like that with just everybody. People randomly coming up to Charlie and having these Charlie Stickney moments.
That's a thing. That's a coffee table.
He did very specific corners, like that, just to make sure he had those to reinforce that impression. But like
that's why you were like, hey, let's take a walk down that corner right there.
Yes, right. Like, and we're gonna take a left now. Oh, look who's here.
Look, oh my God, here's my, But no, like, that was an experience. And Charlie, just to let you know, the fact that we did it that day with the Immortal Flame, for you guys, if you haven't seen the symbol, the Immortal symbol being on both of our T-shirts, that was a moment. That was incredibly memorable. I'm proud of that. That when you worked the street that day, you were representing.
Well, look, I mean, I think it's easy to represent things that you believe in. Right. And like, that's what you want. You want to be part of brands that you feel good about. We're too short. Our time is too short on in life, in different stages of your life. I think like that's the one thing I can, like Blake, you were saying this with your dad. And again, like my heart goes out because I saw some of the posts about that, and I hope everything goes better. Is like, you can't get time and moments back. Right. Yeah. So it's about living in that moment and surrounding yourself with people that you love and that you care about, or that you want to spend time with. And so, like when Peter approached me, I mean, about doing this, it's like, yeah, I had a lot of my own stuff going on, but I wanted to take time to be part of the vision he was building, because I wanted to be part of the orbit of creators that he was cultivating. And to me, that was as exciting about as doing the story of the Adept and making sure that we brought in Tasha, and like that just brought the whole thing to another level, and Nishan, and so like every piece of the team has been great. But going back to that, like I worked in animation, I've worked in film, I've worked in television, and like there's just a level of stress and there's a level of nonsense of a lot of that, and like when my kids were born, you kind of reevaluate things, and you think about what's important in life. And, I'm old enough that I have perspective to say, I don't want to deal with the nonsense. I don't want to deal like you were saying, like, there's no time to be hating things. We want to spend our time doing the things we want to do surrounding ourselves with the kind of people that we want to be on. I'm here tonight because I want to be supporting the vision that Peter's building, but I also like being on your show. You know, you say it's crazy, but did I not bring you people to be on your show?
No,
right?
yeah, it's
Yeah,
but
like-
it's just weird. I like imposter syndrome is like very real, and I just don't understand
but like
it sometimes.
yeah, like there's imposter syndrome. Like, why do people want to do this with me, or what? Like, but know that if they're choosing to be on your show, they're choosing that. That's a choice.
Yeah.
You know, like no one has to do these things. You know, like Peter and I didn't have to work together. He could have found another writer. I could have, you know, done other things, but I wanted to. You know, and then so I think one of the lessons that you should hopefully learn the older you get is to know what makes you happy, what you enjoy doing, and what kind of things you're trying to put out into the world. And if you can focus on surrounding yourself with people that help augment that vision of what you want to do with your life, to put that positivity out there, to tell good stories, like, you know, like Fashang Origins, which is currently on Kickstarter right now, that people can pick up for another 6 days. You know, these are important choices that we all make. And you know, like, so I think if you have the clarity to know what makes you happy, it makes it easier to do that. So I think, you know, we all go through different phases in our life. And I think, like, for me, a lot of the writing that I do is about people who are going through these transitory moments where they're trying to learn what it is. You know, it's like understanding yourself so you can understand who you want to be. Right. And I think that's a journey that a lot of us go through in our late teens, early 20s, sometimes late 20s, sometimes early 30s, before, you know, we become that formed person. And I think a lot of these immortal stories are also about that, because you can't be that hero, you know, that's within until you understand, you know, what's surrounding that hero. Because each of us can bring a unique vision to the world, but we have to know who we are to do that authentically. And so, you know, going back to Peter's vision of that hero within, you know, you got to have that understanding of who you are. So it's like this introspective look to be able to give back to people. And so I think, like, but that goes through a lot of the different pillars of the Adept and, you know, of the Immortal Storyverse. Like, you have all these characters who are finding themselves so they can then contribute the right element and the right piece onto the world. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, but I do feel like that's a big part of the whole mission.
Okay. You rocked him too hard, Charlie.
Okay.
No. I was blown away by Charlie's really cogent Yoda moment. No, he really brought it. I just want to give a total pregnant pause to that, because I think it's worth contemplating. I will say this, Charlie, that you're absolutely right. And before you do that, there is something that you have to put to bed, which I think is your false ego. You know, who you think you're supposed to be, or who you're not. Because I think we spend a lot of time in our lives. I think we're all old enough to have thought these things, like, you know, the thoughts swimming in your head sometimes are not your friends. Sometimes they're not who you really are. And in order for you to get on the other side of it, there's things that you have to confront. There's things that you have to put to sleep. There are new choices that you have to make. And ultimately, that, you know, what comes out on the other side of that process is the hero archetype of our lives. And one of the things that we do at Immortal that we all feel very passionate about is that this is not a one-size-fits-all situation. And not every hero puts on a cape and does, you know, miraculous things on Main Street. You know, I think a lot of these victories actually happen in the private moments of our lives. You know, how are we with the people who could not give to us? You know, who cannot give back to us, the people, you know, doing good deeds when nobody else is watching. But those real moments of victory, or I always think about someone who chooses to open up a neighborhood flower shop. You know, this person, and she may never take somebody down with the coolest, you know, kung fu kick, but somebody who showers her community with care and compassion and support. Like, we want to champion those heroes just as much as the people who do it, you know, in a grandiose fashion, and we're creating room for all of those in the Immortal Storyverse because there's so many different sizes and shapes and colors of heroism that we want to put a spotlight on.
That's so beautifully said. Like, but both of you are so eloquently spoken and have such just good things to say about storytelling. It really shocks me that the first time I interviewed Charlie, there was like a lot of fanboyism going on too, because I just read White Ash and I was like hungry for details, and I was like, just excited to talk to him. It was early in the podcast career, and I was like shocked, you know, like that he was my guest, and but just him talking about like publishing and storytelling and like what Scout looks for and what Scout's about, it really resonated. And a lot of my listeners messaged me later and they were like, dude, that was a really cool episode. Like, it was so cool, like listening to him talk about, like, you know, the behind the scenes mechanics of publishing. And the same thing with you, like what you are looking for and what you're about with Immortal, and just like trying to show other sides to this culture, show other sides of heroism, show other sides of humanity. One of my favorite superhero comics is like the learning to be a hero story, right? Like when it's rough and when they jump off the buildings, they don't land as cool, right? And they make mistakes and they learn from them, and they're unsure of themselves, and they have to learn how to be how to, you know, like they have to build themselves up and learn to believe in themselves. Like those are the best superhero stories, and that's what we're getting in every Immortal book right now.
No, absolutely. And I recently went to an event, and it was a really beautiful reminder that the event was really about what makes a meaningful life. And that oftentimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives are considered that in hindsight, but how we experience them in real time is as suffering or challenge or difficulty. But oftentimes, you know, after they've passed, they become the good old days. You're like, wow, during those times when things were really challenging, the walls felt like they were caving in on me, or I had this thing, and with this person, it was really difficult. But after you've gone through it and you think about your life and you contemplate about it, and then you're reminded, wow, those are the days when I was forged. I became who I am today because of those challenges. And I think that's wisdom, right? And those are also the parts of the stories that we try to really capture, and we try to really go into it. Every one of our titles is about people becoming better versions of themselves, you know, that they really, really ultimately have chosen to do, you know, if not consciously, at least subconsciously.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also think failure crafts all of us, right? It's you know, the journey of life. Like I think, especially if you're a creative, you know, we all have these moments of, oh, if this had just gone differently, I could have done this. Or, you know, like I should have, you know, this should have sold early. Why did people not see how brilliant this was? Or, you know, like you have all these what ifs, but at some point you have to sort of put those aside and say, you know what, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And if any one of those things had happened or happened differently, I wouldn't be here now. You know, I wouldn't have maybe met my wife. I wouldn't be, you know, have the children that I have now today because of all those things that sort of shape the flow of my life. And so I have to respect those. And I have to understand that, you know, that where you are in life right now is a tapestry of everything that came before it, right? And to ignore what's happened is to ignore who you are. And so you need to look back to understand who you are now, and see the path that you took to get here. And, you know, once you have a clearer vision of where you are, you can start appreciating that for the moment. And I think that's, you know, like that's something that, you know, that you've preached, Peter. And I think that's really important, is being present in that moment. But how can you be present in the moment if you don't know who you are, if you don't know where you came from? And there's all kinds of different things that sort of make up where you came from. Whether it's, you know, like the actual path of your life or your parents or your lineage, like all these things come together to shape that path so you can be present in the now. and appreciate the things that are going around you, and make the right choices going forward, and be that hero who can contribute. But you need to sort of just look back and sort of appreciate where it's brought you, so then you can just be you. And see, now we're doing like the public television episode of Blake's Buzz. I feel like like we should be.
We've
this is a very special episode.
But this is where we are. These various rivers have flown into these timeless pearls of wisdom.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like that's a great way to say it.
But I also think like that's as a writer, that's kind of your journey, and I think that's kind of the hero arc that we're talking about with some of these characters. Is they're trying to learn to be who they are, but to be who you are, you have to be present, right? And it's like, how do you be present in your own life? And through meditation, or just through an understanding of where you've come from. There's all different things that people use to sort of find themselves. But I think like the key to finding yourself is being present in that in this moment right now. You're not thinking too much about, oh, what can I do in 10 years? How can I get? No, enjoy what you have. We're on this show. I'm having a good time. I get to see Peter. I get to see you, Blake. I didn't have to put my kids to bed tonight. Like every night it's a little different. Like I love putting my kids to bed, but it's also a struggle. But you got to appreciate. You appreciate those moments, because in like 3 or 4 years, my kids won't want me around putting them to bed. So, like even in those bad times, you have to appreciate them for a piece of your tapestry.
And one thing I've learned about writing,
I think you just dropped a mic.
He did. Charlie is a very proficient mic dropper. But what I've learned about writing and through school and the various college degrees and stuff that like I spent all this money on. Well, I borrowed all this money on. I didn't spend my money on it. But if you're writing horror, if you're writing sci-fi, if you're writing fantasy, if you're writing creative nonfiction, whatever you're writing, like the good writers know how to write about being human, and they know how to write about emotion, whether it's up or down, whether it's funny or fearful, and they know how to orient us like in this universality to keep us like active as an audience member, right? Like they remind us of what we're about, and they remind us that like none of us are perfect, but like that journey to try is exhilarating, and that the fear of like, do I try or do I take the safe route? Like that fear, that balance, that makes a good story when you do try. Like writers need that. They need that in their bones. They need that in their marrow to tell good stories. And the Immortal staff has that. And Charlie's I'm pretty sure Charlie's human because he has kids. He is produced biologically. He's like done things, but he just like Charlie tells really strong stories, and he tells in a lot of different ways, and with like he's very good at talking with like he's good at being sexy. He's good at being funny.
It's a light touch.
Yeah.
He's got a super light touch, but it comes through in the best way possible, and I think that's the magic of his writing. And by the way, Charlie, I had this interaction about you when I was walking through the LA Times book fair. I think this was a month ago. I was going from indie publisher to indie publisher, and that's what some person said about you. This person spotted me. He says, "Hey, you're Peter Shiao." And I said, "How do you know?" He goes, "Well, the hat." And then,
nice to have a trademark.
And then he said, "Wow, I've read all your books, and I started with the Adept. I'm calling it the Adept because Tasha likes to say it, the Adept, and it sounds more powerful and punchy than the Adept. So
whatever Tasha wants, we're going to give Tasha.
Exactly. So the Adept was his gateway drug, and he says, "I just love Charlie Stickney. Everything he does, everything he does, the storytelling that he does." And now, having worked together for a while, I think what really goes through your mind, and this is an important point for creators, is that I think you always think about having the experience of the reader in mind from an aesthetic and non-self-centered point of view. I think, look, we all have messages, like there's things that we want to wax on about, but if we can think about the experience that we're delivering to our audience first and foremost, how to optimize that, how to make it touchy and relevant and interesting, and I just think you do that in spades, and you certainly have you've brought that touch to what could feel like a really heady exercise in heroism or inspiration. Because I mean, put it this way: the people who need inspiration oftentimes are those who are going to reject it the most.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's true, which is why I think, whatever you write, you want to try to put some of those values in, even if they're hidden. Like it's the sugar, like the medicine with a spoonful of sugar, the honey, whatever you can do.
That's the best kind, because nobody wants to be preached at.
Yeah.
Like, do we need another positive message? Maybe, but I feel like what's really powerful are deep experiences and that's where transformation happens, not because somebody just gave you a lecture about needing to be kind, but if somehow you could be in a world and see how characters interact with each other, and the cumulative effect of those experiences take you somewhere new where you have a personal experience of having been there, that's what really changes lives.
Yeah, and I also think we all have to.
Dude, like both of you, like that is what changes lives, and that is what your stories do. Like, I read a lot. I'm on a lot of press lists. I read a lot of comic books. I back a lot of Kickstarters. I'm very blessed that people share a lot of their Kickstarters with me to look at, and again, like I appreciate you guys coming on my show, and I'm not trying to kiss too much ass, but your storytelling is higher than the normative tier that's out right now. And I'm talking about like big 2, big 3, big 5, however you want to lay that out. Like these stories, and also Charlie, like, White Ash and Slept My Way Through College. Like there's a lot of smart stuff there too, but I mean, we're here to talk about Immortal, but like, but Immortal, like these are just really good stories that just like fill your cold guts with a little bit of warmness. There's like a temperature change when you read your guys' stories. It's a visceral thing.
I thank you, Blake. And I think one of the things that you can tell to the people who, still don't understand the value of Kickstarter is it lets you tell stories for the sake of telling the stories, rather than having specific constraints in terms of how you tell the stories. Mm-hmm. So you can spend more time, like if you're at a big 2 company, there's, I got to do a 20-page, and I got to have, there's a schedule which, dictates what you can do. And Kickstarter gives you a little bit more latitude that I've certainly taken with my own work, to be able to flesh things out. Or if this book needs to be 40 pages, it's 40. This one's 32, whatever it needs to tell the story. And I think like that's what you can tell people, and that's also what I love about indie comics in general. I grew up on Marvel, DC. I loved I loved the Incredible Hulk. I loved Spider-Man. Like those were my characters a long time ago. But then different writers came in, and then all of a sudden more different writers came in, and the characters keep changing, and then they're no longer your characters in the same way. And I'm not saying we should gatekeep. I think the characters should evolve. That said, in the indie comic world, if it's the same writers writing the story and creating those characters, you're going to get the same like with Saga, you have the same characters at issue 57 as you had at issue 1. And, you almost never have that same kind of thing going in like big 2 comics anymore, because you don't have that singular voice, and Immortal, Peter is the Kevin Feige, putting everything together and making sure it has the right voice, the right humanity. So, if people haven't checked out what Peter and we're all doing with the Immortal Storyverse, they've got 6 days now to get on there, to check out the Kickstarter campaign, get a catch-up tier, immerse yourself in the entire Immortal universe, get the Adept, get Chronicles of the Immortal Swordsman, get Fa Shang. You want to make sure you have all those things. So going forward, when the next book drops, you're already well immersed in everything that's happening.
Yeah, fully agree. That Kickstarter is live. You can get these books as add-ons. If digital's your deal, you can get digital too. I fully recommend getting the physical copies. One, because the variants are real gorgeous. If you want to spend some extra bones on the variants, which they're totally worth. But just like the page weight, the cover, the cover stock, these books feel good. They feel good to read. They don't feel like they're going to fall apart. They're not wrinkly. They're not flimsy. They stay open for you. They like invite you as a reader. They're like, they want to feel good in your hand, and they want you to enjoy turning the page, not just because you're into the story, but because the paper feels real fucking good on your finger. They're beautiful books. And I paid money for them. Like, listeners, friends, pay money for these books. Get the catch-up tier. You will get 4 amazing comics shipped to you in a couple months or so, and your mind will be blown, and you'll be better for it. And so, like, do that. Back Fa Shang, like, get the Gene Ha variants, like, because good God, they're gorgeous. Like, just pay for them. They like frame them and hang them up because they're so gorgeous.
So I would also say get also the Yishan Li version, because I work with her on the Adept, and so I'm just saying, like, you can just get multiple ones. Like, how could you not? Like, because that Gene Ha cover is great too. I mean, Dexter is the interior artist, so you're almost shaming him by not getting his cover as well. So if you're listening, I would get this catch-up tier, and then just add on the other covers, and you'll thank me later.
Well, guys, I've kept you for over 2 hours now, and this, like, for nerd me, like, this was amazing. Like, Charlie, was so good to talk to you again. Peter, was so good to like meet you and talk to you. And I can't believe you woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is over there to talk to me.
It's now 7 a.m. The sun is coming up over the Dead Sea.
I will remember that forever. Like, this was like a really cool, heartwarming, very awesome Blake's Buzz experience. And Rylend, again, like, he's gone to be a dad, which, like, and so I appreciate Rylend too. All of you guys are so freaking smart. You're so freaking talented. Like, the things that you have to say, the stories that you have up your sleeves, in your back pocket, folded up in your wallet. Like, I'm here for them forever. Like, anything Blake's Buzz can ever do for any of you, I'm here for you. The polite podcast host that I am, real quick, I just want to remind everybody where to find everybody. So like Peter, where's a good place to, like, follow you and Immortal? Like, are you guys mostly on Twitter or Instagram these days? I think you're on Facebook too. You're everywhere.
We're Immortal Wuxia, and we're also Immortal Wuxia on Instagram. And for people who want to take a deeper dive into ancient futurist on Instagram is where I reside.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to follow that one. I'm not following that one yet. I'm writing that down. And
on Instagram yesterday, we just announced a new corporate responsibility initiative, which we take on as a company every year, and I'm really happy. Last year, we took on the plight of Asians living in America, and really at a moment where Asians were under attack. And this year, we're taking on motherfucking Putin. We've made the cause of the Ukrainian people a cause that we're rallying behind to really bring our fans and the larger environment to really support the Ukrainians. Because you know what? They've awakened the power in me. When I turn on the TV, when I tune into the news, I'm looking at real life heroes who are showing us the way. And so, anyways, that is a post that I just did for Instagram.
Well, yeah, I'm definitely going to be following you, because I believe that wholeheartedly. I think the world, I love the heroes we get in comic books, but the world, the real world also needs heroes as well.
Yes. And this moment belongs to Ukraine, the Ukrainian heroes that are kind of shining a light on the human spirit.
They are. They're resilient people, and they're dealing with something that I can't even imagine with, and they're waking up every day ready to fight the battle. And like, I just to to have that in you, to have that fire in you. Like
they're seriously outnumbered. Like
yeah.
everybody thought it was just going to be over with in one weekend. The fact that 3 months later they are they found their way through. Like that's an example of what happens when you fully commit to your journey.
Yes. I totally believe in that 110%. And we need to be there for them, like in our safe spaces too, and give them our support when we can. And Charlie, not to follow up, not to get too heavy before we follow up on you. You are another part of the Immortal Studios, which you can get Charlie's. If you back Fa Sheng, you can get the Adept 1 and 2 as add-ons, which are really good. Also, the Immortal Swordsman. You need to get that. So just like we talked about, get all these comics, get all the variants that you can. Just, take out a payday loan if you got to. Not a big deal. You just pay it back real quick. It won't. It's not there. It's only predatory if you wait for a week, right? but just get what you can. And Charlie just wrapped up a White Ash Kickstarter that did real well. And I'm sure he's got some other stuff in the Kickstarter bucket for later, but so Charlie, where's a good place to keep track of you and your future Immortal endeavors, as well as your future Scout and solo Kickstarter adventures?
Well, like the best place to follow me is on Twitter. That's where I'm most active, at Charles Stickney on Twitter. If you're in the Los Angeles area, I will be at Comic-Con Revolution this weekend. Very excited about that. Concert up, and then I'm really looking forward to being down in San Diego this summer. So those are great places to find me. But if you're looking for something, more immediate, hit me up on Twitter. I'm always there to chat with people and how to talk about the Immortal Storyverse, the Adept, and just life in general.
And let me just kind of get ahead of this, that we have big plans coming up for the Adept and new opportunities that we're leaning into with Charlie, and we'll just leave it at that right now.
and
whatever you guys got cooking in the oven, I'm excited about. Like, I will, anything you guys do, I'm here for it.
And thank you again for having us on. And I will keep you in my thoughts, because I get, like you said, I know you're going through some tough with your family right now. So let's,
I appreciate it. He's not an AFib. Just, I guess I'll give you guys a quick update. Like, they zapped his heart. He's not an AFib. He's got a few more tests to go. And it's just, if he wasn't, he's just a stubborn asshole sometimes. Yeah. I caught him trying to move a dresser the other day. I was like, what the hell? You just got out of the hospital. What are you doing, you weirdo? And it's just like, so it's stuff like that. So like, I'm trying to, like, I got to make him breakfast in the morning, or he won't eat breakfast before he eats like a handful of pills, and then he gets sick. And I'm like, yeah, you just ate a handful of pills with drinking coffee on an empty stomach. Like, come on, man. But so yeah, he's doing better. He's just a grumpy, also stubborn old man who just, you got to kind of wrestle with. He's a character, and I love him. And yeah, it's creepy, but the only good thing about heart stuff is that, like, every year they have all these advancements and things. It's like scary for you as a person, but like the medical procedures, like, they have them down to a science and they got it figured out. But no, I appreciate the kind words, and I just, it's weird when you're like 36 and you got to kind of like keep track of your dad, right? It's, like, he's not keeping, he's still there for me, but it's not like, when I was a kid and he was like, hey, quit doing dumb shit. Now I got to be like, hey, quit doing dumb shit. And I'm like, well, what happened? So yeah, it's just a weird.
Gentlemen, on this note, I'm going to have to check out, because I literally started with 100 with my battery fully charged, and it's about to go out any second now.
All right. Well, both of you, like, I thank you so much. Like, you're both awesome, and this was awesome to talk to you. Like, Charlie, your kids are going to think you're cool one day. I promise you they will. And Peter, like, your dad, there's no, like, he's impressed with what you're doing, because everybody else is. Like, you're doing such cool things with the legacy he left you, and the culture you're trying to get out there. And like, you're just such an impressive figure to me, and this was an honor to talk to you, and like, thank you for coming on my show.
Hey, there's so many takeaways, but I'll give this. The bakery bouncer thing is stuck. It's there. So let's remember that. The second thing we didn't talk about is this cool baseball hat thing you have on, and you gave me a really great merch idea that we have to do, which is the hat with the immortal flame where the X is right now. That's the next piece of merch we have to get out there. So when we do it, I'm going to send it to you as to remember this really awesome session with. And Charlie, you brought on the Quan tonight, dude. You were on fire. You brought.
I got to represent. That's why you brought me.
You don't usually go there because you do the Charlie touch, but tonight you kind of busted that open and shared a real piece of your heart, and it was really beautiful to be part of.
Yeah. Well, so, thank you, Peter. You bring out the best in me.
To the people at home, look, I just love it with you guys. We really want you in on the ground floor of the Immortal Storyverse. Fa Sheng, we're packing. This is a really difficult story to tell, and this would not have happened in any other publishing house, because it's a period piece. You know, it stars with a Chinese guy with a pigtail in a part of history that may not be you're very familiar with. We're going to a lot of different places. Let me just promise you that it really brings the goods. We got a really powerful team behind it, and we just want you to be part of this journey. So if you're at home listening to this, we want you as part of the campaign, and I want to thank you in advance for your support. It really matters. As an indie publisher, we do need this kind of support to do the things that we do, and it doesn't get done any other way. So
yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Hey, yeah, I endorse everything. These books are great. Back them. Head to Kickstarter right now. Do it. You got 5 days, but you should just do it right now. Get it over with. Just get in there. These are comics that you guys will not regret reading, and you won't regret rereading, and you won't regret reading them a third time. These are going to last you for a long time. Lots of great storytelling. Guys, both of you, you're both amazing. Thank you so much for coming on Blake's Buzz. This was such a pleasure. I wish you both the best of successes in everything you do, but you don't need my luck because you're already killing it 110%. But I just really appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me tonight. It really meant a lot, and this was so cool.
All right. See you later. See you, Peter.
Have a good night, guys.
It's Blake's Buzz Live.